Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Data Strategy Unraveled with me, Dwayne Browne. When I did the original pitch for a conversational version of Data Strategy Unraveled, I felt like you, the audience, you were inundated with opinions around the tech and what best to do with the technology. And I wanted to give you access to practitioners who had direct experience with delivering real change for business with unique points of view. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, I sat down with Tey Bannerman. Tey is ex-McKinsey, as he's a McKinsey partner. He led their design practice for quite a number of years, actually. And to me, the conversation was awesome. And hopefully you see that in it as it plays out. It made me think about like Amazonian principles, right? At first we were 14, now there's 16. But the point is, it's the tension that you need to focus on, embodying and triangulating one versus the other, kind of weighing when to be more on one side versus on the other side. Lean too heavily on customer obsession and you struggle to be frugal. Lean too heavily on thinking big and you might struggle to deliver results. So it's really about striking the balance. And to me, Tey really strikes that balance. And he's an Amazonian, but he knows his stuff. Data Strategy Unraveled with Tey Bannerman. I haven't actually put down like this scale.
Yeah.
So going through all the different content with you, I actually read it word for word, coming down, listened to everything word for word, and it just took the bits that jumped out at me.
Okay, cool.
And then what I'm supposed to do after that is kind of like level up into a little scale. So you usually get your kind of, introduction.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then, we're going to kind of tease out the middle bit around productivity and everything. And then it goes out. And so it's like, okay, well, all right, Dwayne, you need to send Tey like his skill so that he could actually start to kind of think about some things. I'm sure he doesn't have to, but that's what you do.
Yeah.
But you yourself, you don't have the time for that. So check me up until like last night. It's like, what is the skill? What is the skill? And it's like, you know what? Just don't do that. Just come here and we just talk it out.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah? I love it. Yeah.
So we know that there'll be some tensions. We can even do the introduction last.
Cool. Yeah.
So I wondered though. I just wondered just to myself, how would you describe yourself?
I help organizations work out what to do with technology in a responsible manner and in a manner that draws upon years of experience, seeing successes and failures at multiple levels, and working with teams of all sizes, types, shapes, including engineering and so on. So people call on me when they want that breadth of experience and they want kind of a way of thinking about things that connects multiple dots, connects technology, human-centered design, and so on. And that typically happens when they've seen a more linear way fail.
Right. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
would you, because there's a piece where you talk about your time in banking. Is that any particular reason? Is that kind of a larger percentage of your experience was in banking, for example?
Yeah. So while I was at McKinsey, where I was for almost 9 years, I'd say just over half my work was in financial services. So banking, wealth management, insurance. And that was an industry I'd never worked in before. So there was a lot of learning, but then you also quickly recognize that there are a lot of parallels between kind of, what companies in financial services who have a lot of time and money to spend on technology and innovation, and the lessons you can draw from that to other types of companies. And so even though I did a lot of my work in banking, I did work in mining and consumer services and all sorts.
Right. I when I go through like your profile, there are lots of parallels. I draw you to myself, right? The point you just made there around almost like disparate ideas, so like an idea that might work in media could work in retail and vice versa. So that really resonates with me. And there are lots of things that you mention in the written work. So a lot of like the articles and everything that you wrote that really got it to me. We're going to talk about the purple vegetable test for sure. Right? For sure. We were just debating just now before we started recording. And we talked about the points where we disagree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And I was saying that so from an Accenture perspective, so not from an AWS perspective, right? I don't get the same affordances as you do. So I believe, and there's a lot of assumptions that I make about your world and the work that you do. So I believe that customers are giving you listening time. I'm going to steal your word, right? I believe that customers are giving you a lot more space, and they've got a perception in their mind that you're qualified to work with them at that level, to advise them at that level. But by the time someone like myself or my little merry band of men and women come into play, there's certain things that have been decided. They've already got a rough order of magnitude of the costs of things, and they've got a rough order of magnitude of the scope, like the bookends of the thing that they want us to do, and therefore, my time pressure is actually as a result of the work that you will, right? And you push back on that. So it wasn't like that straightforward. There were some assumptions that do you want to elaborate on?
I think where I pushed back was, I guess, the perception that kind of at a large management consultancy like McKinsey that you have a lot of time. And kind of, I counted to say we typically don't have a lot of time. There's a lot of time pressure, but what we do have a lot of is space and affordance to set direction, and to set direction in a way where there's a belief that kind of we understand the industry, we understand the client's context, therefore there's perhaps kind of less pushback because people are coming to us to go, okay, you are the experts that will help us set direction. I mean, maybe an analogy is, okay, you guys can say, okay, we're going to be building, a sled or toboggan. You guys will help us go, which is the hill we need to go on top of, and which direction do we need to push it. But then once it's pushed down, then it's over to you guys, and you guys go, wait, this might not be the right hill. This is going too fast for our liking. But by that point, we're talking Accenture or whichever kind of systems integrator, you guys have less affordance to be able to make decisions on which hill should we go on and how should we push the sled down the hill.
And we got a lot to say about, because for two reasons, right? One, I think it's probably safe to say most of us haven't worked at that level. If you think about it, it's probably well over 10 years now, but most of us at that time, we'd never worked at the level that you're working at. We didn't have that audience. So we always felt unfeared in that sense. You get that sense. But you made a point earlier as well. It's like, you live your life. So your perspective is the perspective of being further up in the food chain in a sense.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? And I come later on. In that supply chain, in that value chain, and therefore that's my perspective.
And kind of what I was also saying is I've been on the other side. I've worked at tiny agencies where you get a brief that's been handed down through multiple people, and by the time you see that brief, you don't have any leeway, you don't have any kind of right to go, okay, let's change that strategy. You're there to execute. But I think because I came from that background, I probably have a lot more sympathy and empathy for the people that are going to be implementing kind of the solutions. If that's not me, I do a lot of implementation myself, but it means that I come with a mindset of, okay, I understand that there are going to be teams of engineers, teams of data scientists. What do they need for success that I can help shape now? And I think a lot of kind of lifetime consultants don't necessarily have that perspective factored in when they set strategy.
Those are like tried and true
Yeah.
You strike me as the kind of person that there's always a blend. Right? Again, I see that aspect in myself as well. But I was curious in how you manage to go through your career and progress very successfully with that blend. How did you manage to play both roles? What decisions did you make or not make, or what types of conversations are you having? How do you frame it? How do you communicate it? That's the
I think there are two sides. I think one side is, if I think about my career progression, I started as a software engineer. Then I became a designer for many years. Moved a little bit into product. I went to a management consultancy. And so each of those has, some might say they're very different in terms of kind of functions and types of things you're doing. To go from coding to design to kind of, making PowerPoint presentations, as some might put it. Three very different things. But I think the other side to it is, probably stubbornness and curiosity. So if I think about every job I've had, every role I've had, yes, I might have started doing the thing I was hired to do, but my natural curiosity and stubbornness meant that I would naturally start to kind of pull in other areas and elements that I was skilled in, whether I was asked to or not. Because I went, okay, that's going to drive value for this particular piece of work we're doing now, and I can do it, so I'm going to do it. And so I think, a lot of it is doing the things that you're not asked to do, and not necessarily being able to justify it. But if the outcome is good, nobody's going to complain, and that's always been my mindset. Yeah,
that's true.
So I remember when I started at McKinsey. Kind of, there were projects where I was literally writing code. I wasn't supposed to be, but it's like, okay, there's a lack of capacity in the team for this particular thing. I have time. Yeah, I'm gonna do this, and the majority of the time you're not, explicitly asked to, but if you can, and it's not going to be a detriment to the team, and it's going to help you collectively get to a better outcome, then my mindset is always absolutely.
Just do it. Got that bias for action.
Yeah.
I like that, man. I like that. I think there's another way where you play both roles, and you kind of straddle two sides. Is this we've got here this whole tension between being more philosophical versus being more pragmatic, right? So you got this kind of you in a lot of the written word again is you go, well, this is the way you think about something philosophically, but then the reality of business is that here's your value end, here's your pragmatic, and here's what it means for customers.
Correct.
And is it do you consciously do that, or is it that your experience is such that it kind of shapes the messages that you want to deliver?
I think that there is a degree of how I naturally approach problems is, on one hand, very pragmatically to go, okay, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? What's the most optimal route to get there? But then I also think of consequences and think of the humans at the end of the day who are either going to be using or adopting the technology. And therefore, there's a philosophical element. And so, in a lot of kind of, my work and a lot of my writing and so on, there is both sides, as you say. But I think in almost everything, if you really want people to think, and if you really want people to have an emotional reaction to something, which then gets them to the pragmatic side in a more kind of in a more of a manner where they viscerally feel and understand it, then you do need to bring in an element of, okay, how do I make people think about this problem in a way that is either personal to them or in a way that is novel to them, before you then get to the pragmatic, practical solution, because otherwise it's just boring.
There was one article you wrote about, almost like taking a process and sticking too close to that process. And you were almost betrayed by the outcome, because we're taught to think that processes in your own right deliver great outcomes.
Correct.
And we really stick close to it, particularly if we are not, if we go into jobs and we were taught the process and we stick to it.
Correct, yeah.
Rather than thinking, hey, this process is just one of many ways that you can get a customer to the right place.
Yeah.
And that really just hit home because I see it all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're right. I think maybe it's just me, but I'm willing to think that is a much broader audience. I think you've done this thing where you I think you used the right word. It really cuts through. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But you managed to do it in a way where, like, you got this like this cool persona, really kind of relaxed. and I was thinking to myself the other night, I was saying to my wife, he's got to be probably really pissed off, because the hype, right? There's a hype, and by the way, I think hype is part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But you must be seeing all of this hype, all of this, we call it follow pattern.
Yeah.
And you were like, think, get out of the box, And, earlier we were talking about the note that I kind of put under in the introduction for Tey is he wants his customers to think out of the box but not out of the world. And to me, that's like the summary. Like
yeah. No, I think that's a great way of putting it, because I do think that the answer, so to speak, to kind of any novel problem is very rarely going to be just following kind of an existing process that kind of doesn't get to novel solutions. And so I do think, thinking out of the box is important. But I mean, it doesn't piss me off when I see people just following the hype. I see it more as an opportunity, because I think one thing that's been on my mind a lot is, yes, there are likely a lot of organizations, individuals who are leading organizations, following a path that might not lead them to the best outcome, either for their organizations or for the people within the organizations or for society. But me getting angry when I see that isn't going to help. How I can help is by creating content, creating things, creating something that helps them see alternative paths. And so that's kind of, it's almost like a fire, more so than kind of any kind of anger.
Exactly. The reason why you do your that many speaking engagements. So that's
definitely part of it. Yeah. But then, you can only be in one place at one time. So I'm also thinking broader than that.
You need to solve like teleportation, omnipresence.
Yeah, but I don't think the answer is Tey being there all the time. I think the answer is kind of something that allows people to go, okay, here is a different way of looking at this opportunity that's there with AI and this kind of path that we're on. And this gives me a guide, it gives me a playbook, but it also forces me to think about things that my organization wouldn't otherwise have thought of. So I don't know what that thing is yet, but it's there. It's there. We just have to find it. Or I just have to find it.
You just gotta find it, dog.
Yeah.
Let's talk about design leadership.
Yeah.
All right. So and you provide a lot of guidance around human-centered design.
Yeah.
The challenge for design leadership today versus tomorrow, structuring teams, the operating model around design.
Yeah.
I got this idea, I call it the new front door idea. And it goes something like this. It says, we are all barreling towards a single front door of something.
Yeah.
Initially, it will be a handful of front doors, right? Of which the services we want, the way how we organize our day will be handled through these front doors.
Yeah.
Let's say there are 5. And at first, when I say, hey, I got a meeting with Tey at 5:00, what's the best way to get there? And it gets me a taxi. That taxi will be based on the partnership that it has. So it won't be my favorite taxi service. It will be the taxi service that it's got a commercial agreement with in that early stage.
Yeah.
Okay. And then as time passes and as, government step in and regulators step in, it will become a lot more open. It'll be like open banking, right? And then when they say, my mom is landing from Barbados at 11 o'clock tomorrow, should I drive or should I send a taxi for her or should we just get public transport? And it does its thinking. It's not thinking based on its relationships or its commercial agreements. It's thinking based on the services that I tell it that I want it to use.
Yeah.
Right? But we're about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps away from that. Okay? But in all of that whole world, in our whole scenario, you realize that the actual design element is removed. Brands have lost control.
Yeah.
Of like the first interaction that consumers have with their brand. When I'm ordering that taxi, I'm not going to the taxi's app anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying that in that world, you won't have a need for design leadership. I actually agree with you. I think that design leadership will significantly change. And before I share my view, I wanted to get your view on that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So if I take that scenario you've laid out, I think there are multiple considerations there where, so if I take the two sides, if I take the customer or the user using this front door or these front doors and you having a set of preferences. So you said, at the outset, the taxi that comes might not be your preferred one. It'll be whichever one that the company you're using makes most money from.
Yes.
But you have your set of preferences.
Yes.
And there's likely going to be a set of competitors to that company. So you have the choice to make to go, am I going to go with the ones who send me my preferred taxi every time? Or am I going to go with the ones who might send me something I don't want, might be slower, that might have less transparency. So you ultimately make choices. And so the people who design these front doors are going to have to consciously design it for you to be able to make choices that go, I'm going to choose company A versus company B versus company C.
Yeah.
That's design one. And then on the other side, these companies are going to have to decide, okay, one, where does my revenue come from? Does my revenue come from the margin I make when Dwayne says, okay, I want a taxi, to get my mom from the airport, and I send her a motorbike because I make the biggest margin on that. But it means I'm likely gonna have higher churn, higher customer turnover because customers are likely going to be unhappy with that service.
Fair.
Or does my revenue come from Dwayne paying a high subscription fee for consistent service and for his preferences to be met?
Right.
So companies are also going to have to kind of think about design in a new way because if they ultimately want to make money, they're going to have to go through these considerations. But then the others, if I go back to the first side, you might start to develop a set of preferences for a particular brand because ultimately at the end of the day, your experience and your happiness and joy is what dictates whether you choose brand A versus brand B.
Yeah.
And if there are companies out there that only offer brand B, which is not your preference, then you're going to make a choice as a consumer to brand A. So I still think that brands are going to be relevant.
Right.
Perhaps the avenue that you get to those brands might change, but then again, brands have control to be able to go, okay, actually we're going to either partner with Front Door A or we're going to build Front Door A ourselves because we recognize that the path to the consumer is going to be via a different channel. Therefore, we want to own that channel. So I think the dynamics will change. But going back to the original part of your question, I think all of these fall into the realm of design. So not necessarily the visual side of things, but making decisions that enable consumers to say, I'm going to make choice 1 or choice 2, and I'm going to choose company A or company B. And you want, the consumer to always choose your companies.
So I think we learned. So I'll tell you my view.
Yeah.
So my view is that design as a practice will turn inward, and it would be forced to go operational for two reasons. There'd be two pretty big reasons.
Yeah.
One is what we just described.
Yeah.
But two, I think that there is an enormous amount of work to rethink how we work today.
Yeah.
Right?
So just to clarify, when you say forced to go operational, what do you mean?
As in forced to go, true, I understand what you mean there. As in forced to focus. So if I think about a large percentage of design work comes from, I've got a consumer-facing part of my operations.
Yep.
And therefore, this is a revenue generator.
Correct.
It's a key touch point. So therefore, I'm going to think about the way that's best layout, the best conversion rates, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. Yeah.
And therefore, that's the service. And I'm going to have dedicated design resources towards the app, the web, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's probably less focus on, like, even if you think service design, you kind of drill down, there's probably less focus on the handoffs between teams, the decision points between. And what I'm saying is that in that future world, designers are going to have to go, actually, let me turn around and go inward. And therefore, in that scenario we just explored, the logic, the way how the right option for my mom is surfaced to me comes from the thinking of turning inward. And so I think that's a big change.
So I think it was 4 years ago now. McKinsey did a piece of research called The Business Value of Design. And one of the data points that came out of that is that when designers help design internal processes, it improves company outcomes by, I think it was 1.8x.
Right.
So there are already companies that have designers, yes, doing customer-facing work, but also turning inwards to go, how do we help improve efficiency? How do we help remove frictions within the organization? How do we help ourselves as an organization kind of, become better? And the companies where designers are doing that are already doing better than their competitors. So I do think that it's already kind of something that the best performing companies do. Right. And I agree that in future that shift is going to need to happen. Yeah. But I don't think that shift is new. I think it's And if I think about kind of, my role, one of my roles at McKinsey when I was leading McKinsey Design, a big part of what designers were doing was also helping on internal initiatives. And kind of one, there is the value that the organization realizes, but I think one data point there in that same piece of research was that it also reduces churn rates of employees. There are a whole bunch of kind of positive outcomes that organizations get from kind of designers being involved in helping redesign internal processes.
I'll tell you a story. So this is 2012, 2013. This is when you had this very large digital analytics community. Yeah. People who do, Omniture this and Adobe that and multivariate testing this. And I was in that group. And then you had a much larger conventional data world, the data warehousing bots, right? The star schema this and they were about to collide. Yeah. They were about to collide. They were about to meet in the middle, and we all gonna had to work out, who had the most, who was most influential. These guys were largely exposed to things that were like new age that we deal with today. Okay. Like real-time this and personalization that. Yeah. It was all very superficial though. It wasn't, really integrated into anything, but we were getting results. Okay. Right? And these guys were like, they knew what the enterprise needed. They had the rigor and the security this and right. And it's like, well, when we met in the middle, something really weird happened in that the quarrels were about well, you don't know what you're talking about. When you're saying you don't know what you're talking about, it was often like, oh, well, you don't know what it takes to do data in the right way.
I see.
You're just a marketing bot playing data, right? And I wonder if you'll get a very similar kind of thing playing out. Because I could argue, right, that you've got people like myself. I'm not a designer by trade at all. Right? I love design. I always work alongside design teams, but I've never been formally trained in any of that stuff. And I'm in the trenches with customers trying to work out how they rethink operations and apply AI to the thing. But I'm doing it from the little bits of human-centered design and design thinking that I've been trained in. Right? Whereas I'm going to meet like a real boffin. 2-3 years from now, it'll be like the real boffins will arrive, like yourself, and it'll be like, hey, what are you talking about? Right? But by then I would have had a lot of like rounds under my belt. I would have done a whole lot of workshops, 4 or 5 years worth of workshops, and some deliver some change. And I wonder what is going to be like that tension. If it's going to be the same thing, if the same things will play out, and when businesses have to hire, who will they prioritize? Who will they lean towards?
I mean, I think there will be tension, but I don't think the tension will be with people like yourself, because I think you understand that talking to your customers, that understanding their needs is important if you want to get to the right solution. Right. A lot of people don't take that approach and don't take that mindset. And I think it's that approach and mindset that clashes with the approach and mindset of people that go, no, let's invest time with our customers, to understand them deeply. So I think it is a matter of where you spend your time and resource. And I think that's where the tension tends to come from, where you have one group of people saying, let's just get up and running. We already know the answer. And the other group of people saying, we don't know the answer at all. We need to talk to customers and spend time with them. And that's a tension I've seen across my entire career. And I think, in over 90% of cases, spending time with your customers is the right direction, because you never know everything, and you will always be surprised. And the more you anchor what you do and how you do it in the needs of your customer, your user, whatever that might be, you tend to have better outcomes, more novel outcomes that actually solve real problems.
I want to explore the whole idea of tensions with you. I got a little diagram here, and I got T in the middle with human-centered design. And I got these tensions on it. It's a square, human-centered design, and T in the middle. And you've got like these tensions on either side. And the first tension is this perceived time to value. This whole idea that I picture somebody saying, anybody got time for that? Anybody got time for workshops? Right? And bringing different groups of people together on cross-pollination of ideas and multidisciplinary teams. Nobody got time for that, right? Don't make me have to tell you the requirements again. But just, because, some people see the work that we do, as a different type of requirements gathering that takes a long time before you must already have the answer. Can't you just give me the answer? And therefore, I think sometimes the reason why people push back against doing the good work, as I call it, is because they think it's a time waster, which kind of leans into what you just said, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but like, if you think, how many times in your career have you kind of been in a meeting, maybe it was halfway through a project, and you realize that kind of, the majority of people in the room are actually not on the same page and don't have the same understanding of the problem or what you're working on. How many times have you kind of got all the way to a product launch and you realize that different teams and departments who are meant to be working towards the same goal fundamentally have different goals, and there's fundamental misalignment. And in every instance where that's happened with me, you don't get to a good outcome, or you have to do more work to go backwards, to fix things, to get realignment. And so
100%.
everything you're talking about is about not necessarily preventing that, but it's an aid of kind of, you know, having clear communication, having aligned goals, having clarity on what you're building towards, what that vision is. And, you know, the earlier you have that, the smoother things tend to be kind of, you know, across the board as you build towards kind of shared outcomes. And that's essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to kind of get to a place where you have shared outcomes, shared understanding of the problem, you know, shared knowledge, and that enables you to work together more effectively.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I you know, we were talking before we started, like, you know, they're when they do these podcasts, I one thing I don't think is very useful for the audience is for us to always agree.
Yeah.
But with you, it's a struggle because they're in a lot of ways we got very similar experience just from different angles. And, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted us to kind of play out this tension is so that it isn't, you know, 20-30 minutes of I agree, right? But I 100% agree with what you're saying there. There's another tension that is, I call it pragmatism. It's probably not quite the right word. So, and I think this is where, keep me honest here, but I think this is where maybe our experience slightly varies away.
Yeah.
So if I think about my client side experience, I think about how I would, you know, kick off pieces of work, put business cases down. You know, in my mind, it was all about what can you do in that budget year, Dwayne? Because if you don't do it, it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
Right. So can I do more and some? And, you know, I am in that way. You're not careless, but you are laying down lots of carpets. Kind of put that analogy out there for you, right? So it's like, the personalization engine, right? Get it down, deliver that year enough to deliver some value. So when you get to the next budget cycle, you can say, "Yep, this way delivered. Give me some more." Right. And then they go, voice of customer stuff. All right, lay it down, and they go, "All right, cool. All right. So let me get into the call center teams and the base con teams. Okay, good. There's a net drop in." In NPS, deliver some value, propensity score down, good. Give me some more. Right. That's the name of the game. Right. And if you look back, it's like, oh, dog, you just laid down like 15 carpets and they're not structured at all. They're just on the floor. People are using them, but they're kind of stepping all over them. It looks a bit messy. And then I think there should have been someone like Tey and his team taking a domain approach, actually saying, here, where are the red dots? Let's make them green. Let's systematically walk through and make it right and focus on adoption. But the reality is there's probably somebody like me doing what I just described. You see what I mean?
I think I have a good friend that told me once that kind of you have to know what game you're playing. And so kind of she leads a business where quarterly cycles dominate everything. So kind of, and it's exactly kind of what you described. Kind of every quarter, every kind of, fiscal year, you are going through and you have to kind of set targets, deliver them, you have initiatives. And like you say, you're laying down multiple carpets. But there are kind of, many other companies in her field where they don't have the same kind of quarterly cycle and quarterly motions that they have through. Some are family owned, therefore kind of, they don't have a set of, shareholders that they have to appease. But those companies can really focus on their brand, focus on their mission, take the time and do things to a level of quality that they deserve. And again, if you don't know what game you're playing and you think you're playing the quarterly cycle game, but you're really in the other world, then you're going to be doing disservice to the company and the brand. But if you come into a situation thinking, hey, I have time to take a look at all the red dots and we can set this 3-year program where we don't see any value for 18 months, then you're probably not going to be in that role in 12 months' time. So
this balance.
But also like to really kind of know the situation you're in, know which sport you're playing, and I think that's critical, because otherwise kind of you tend to make decisions kind of for the wrong context, for the wrong scenario, and from a misunderstanding of the amount of time, leeway, and budget that you really do have. Yeah.
I really want to talk to you about this purple vegetable test. Quickly though, I think one of the last tensions I got here is empathy is not enough, and it stems from a point you raised around, well, if you ask, people in the early 1900s what do they want from a car, they probably tell you, or how do they want to go from point A to point B? They say they want a faster horse. That's the analogy, right? And therefore, if we lean too heavily on what you just say they want, then, well, it doesn't help us to see around the corner. So, how do you push back on that? As a tension point to human-centered design? Is it around doing more observation? Then is it cost around observation? Do you have that upfront time to bake into the development of a product? So there's all of these balancing forces to get to the right point where it's like, well, you know it's the right thing to do. You know you would end up with the right outcome. But time, costs.
So I think that the answer isn't typically doing more observation. So kind of, with if you'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I think the brilliance of people that really focus on human behavior and human needs is that they look below the surface. So yes, people would say they want faster horses, but why? It's to get from point A to point B quicker, more efficiently, with more control. So it's always looking below the surface of what people actually say to understand why. And it's typically when you look 2 or 3 layers below that you start to understand, okay, what they really want is this kind of, the deeper need, and that's what you design and solve for. So it's always kind of, there's this translation exercise you need to do, where once you really understand that deeper need, then you go, okay, can we actually do anything about it? And I think that's where you get to solutions like cars, like iPhones, because you fundamentally look below the surface. And I think the majority of people just look on the surface and look at what people say. And, in many respects, more observation might just lead you to listening to more of what people say, as opposed to going deeper. And going deeper isn't easy. But yeah, I'm going to counter you there and disagree with you and say what you need to do is the hard part.
Well, and I think this leads us very nicely onto this very purple vegetable test. You probably want to explain to the audience what we mean with purple vegetable test.
I don't know what you mean. I'm kidding.
So if you're doing digital analytics for any given time, you're going to be stuck in search for a long time. So it really kind of brought back like memories of like working with like merchandisers, trying to work out synonyms and all sorts of stuff. And you're so right. It's like many people wouldn't know how to spell aubergine.
And
the emoji is so much more popular now. So there must be people just writing purple vegetable.
So I'll tell the story of what we mean by the purple vegetable test. So this was about 1.5 years ago. I was working with a grocery retailer where kind of the challenge that was put in front of us was essentially, can we explore ways that we can use generative AI to improve search, to help us make it easier for our customers to find what they're looking for. And in the course of that, when looking at the data, what we found was that kind of there were a lot of search queries from people that came up with 0 results. And one of those examples is people going purple vegetable. So if you look at most grocery websites, most grocery apps, you type in purple vegetable, you'll actually get no results. You won't get aubergines, you won't get eggplants, you won't get purple cabbage. You might get purple cabbage because it has the word purple in it.
That's right.
But they tend to be a string match or a text match. And that's how most catalogs are built. Not on the actual intent of the human being, and not based on understanding of what the human being is really looking for, or how people really communicate and talk about things. And so, talking about getting deeper, the problem that we really kind of had to work on was not how do we, create better search, but how do we create a translation layer between what people mean and what they're actually looking for? Yes. Because yes, you can go, let's burn the whole thing down and completely redo the catalog and have synonyms and everything. Yeah. Or you can do what we end up doing is invest a lot of time into understanding, okay, what are people really looking for? Yeah. And then use the power of a large language model to create that layer that translates, okay, here's a person's intent into here are the kind of the respective products and services within the catalog that could match that intent. And then you get into kind of really exciting things like, okay, understanding context and going, okay, if someone starts to go, okay, I'm looking for sausages and I'm looking for burgers, then they're like, and it's summer right now, they're likely shopping to kind of, to do a barbecue, and therefore you can almost preempt what they start looking for next. So it gets you into exciting territory as well.
Well, I mean, and I know we need to close, but this is, so I started with this, by the way.
Yeah.
When I was actually doing my research on you. And, immediately what came to mind is, well, hang on, he's so right. But this is why we've got a difference in experience.
Yeah.
So like by the time I come in and I'm meant to optimize this thing, right? Then you're very early on in that engagement, you're forced to then work out what in the grand scheme of a backlog of items that you got to deliver, which are the things that are going to give you the most bang for buck, and things like this get left.
Yeah.
But what they don't tell you is, and you know this.
Yeah.
You know this better than me. No one is ever going to get to that, because actually there's a long tail of costs associated with that to get that extra 20% for the customer. There's a 20% for the customer, helping the customer to get that result easier. But the benefit to the business is probably just shy of that, depending on what the grocery retailer is. And therefore, if you're going to go through a backlog of items and do impact assessments for it, it's always going to miss the mark. So probably one of the better things that you would do is maybe do something like that earlier on. Or fold it in that initial piece of work in such a way that it gets delivered as part of the kind of initial goodness. But if you ever leave it behind, I don't think anybody ever gets back to it. That's where my mind went. I think that's getting a little too technical. But.
No, but I think part of the challenge is that a lot of larger organizations compartmentalize delivery. So it's either you have one team handling this part of the strategy, then one team defining the product, then one team handling the back end, another team handling the front end, and then through all those kind of handoffs and negotiations, you go, okay, the value of doing this thing is not worth it. And so I think part of the challenge is that compartmentalization, which also includes implement different vendors to do your strategy. But in the instance that I described, kind of with that grocery retailer, part of the value was having a dedicated team that was focused on that problem end to end. So having a front-end engineers, your data scientists, your kind of designers in that same unit, looking at the problem from different angles and coming to a shared kind of understanding of what the solution could be, as opposed to having, okay, we have our design team that's gone and understood the problem, kind of written up requirements to hand over to a product team, who has written up requirements to hand over to an engineering team. And I think, one, it leads to a lot more time spent kind of doing things, but two, it also leads to a very different formula for how you define value, because you have to factor in kind of just a lot more handover, a lot more time spent communicating between teams, 100%. A lot more kind of, conflict between, demands from different teams. So I think that's a lot of times, I'm not saying it's simple, but a lot of times that is one of the kind of key underlying factors behind why kind of, company A, which is much larger, might value kind of, getting to a 20% improvement in customer outcome much lower than a startup who is able to be much nimble and go, actually, we can double our customer base if we come up with this new way of doing search, because for us, increasing, the customer output by 20% kind of means that we kind of have 10 times as many loyal customers that come to us because we're doing something different, for example.
You're alluding to so many things. We probably need to do this again, my friend. But so you alluded to a different way of structuring teams, right? Implied in that it's a different funding model for set teams well, right?
Yeah.
So there's all manner of reasons why I say a legacy organization, for example, would struggle with that concept, and the opportunity that they've got to do it is either stand up a program of work and do it differently and demonstrate it differently, or stand up a kind of like dedicated like example team, like what,
like Lighthouse,
like hosting, and it's like, well, okay, well, outside of that, it's going to be BAU, and the appetite for that is gonna struggle with. So I and as I said, in going into this, I thought I've got to frame these tensions in that I agree with Tey, but I want to lay out on the table and let's explore the different tensions, right? And that's the reason.
And there's also kind of the realities of kind of, the organization that you're in, how success is measured, what kind of metrics that you kind of look at. Kind of, one of my favorite examples is kind of there's a company called Shark Ninja. They make kind of vacuum cleaners, kind of household appliances, and one of their kind of foundational metrics is Amazon reviews of their products. That's how teams measure the success of the products they build and evolve, and those are shared metrics. So, and what that kind of has led to is that a lot of teams, one, are kind of more hybrid collaborative teams, but they're all working to the same output. How do we increase those Amazon reviews? So they're forced to go, okay, let's look at those reviews kind of regularly to understand, okay, where are people having problems? And that might lead to, okay, we actually need to kind of fix something or improve something on the engineering side. It might mean we need to improve ergonomics, but your decision-making comes from how your customers are using it, which then determines what you work on next to improve your product, as opposed to different teams having different metrics.
That's amazing. You made me think about something. So we definitely got to do this again. If it's okay with you, by the way. I mean, I literally just got a Shark Ninja. Like, it's like a wet vacuum cleaner thing. The reason why I got it is that they seem to have this earlier model where the nozzle was really narrow. And they got this new version where the nozzle is wider. And that's exactly what I wanted. Because I could then clean my, And I bought it for that. Seriously. So someone is listening.
Always. I
want to close with this question. So when you describe like the banking, the future of banking, I was like, is he talking about Monzo? As I feel like they're the only real like bank out there that is really trying to be a partner in your financial well-being. Like truly. Like outside of just, adding different like features and subscriptions and that sort of stuff to sweeten you up. I feel like they're giving me this holistic view of me. And I never thought a bank would do that. But is it on my way off?
No, I mean, I think I think that if you are a challenger bank, you have a lot more leeway and flexibility in how you define success for your customers, and you also have kind of a lot less legacy to kind of to work against, and so. But I think it also means that it's within your gift to define what that kind of looking after your customers' well-being means. If I take Revolut, for example, they have travel sims. They kind of are looking at kind of telecommunications. They're looking at kind of you can book holidays from the Revolut app. So their definition is, okay, we play more of a role in the multiple aspects of our customers' lives that matter to them, as opposed to helping them on financial well-being, which kind of Monzo focuses more on, as opposed to Starling, where it's, okay, we can kind of, if you're a customer with us, your small business account, your kids account, your family account, your joint account, you can look at it all in one place. So So, and that's how they compete against each other as well. But I do think that the ultimate place it gets to for customers is a better one, because we have more choice in saying, okay, I'm going to go with a bank that looks after my financial well-being first, versus I'm going to go to a bank where I can get, airline lounges when I travel. But I think it's only pushed things kind of, to a better place for customers, where a lot of the kind of high street banks might not be doing these things, but they will get to a place where they're forced to, because they might see themselves losing customers to some of these challenger banks.
Yeah, definitely. And I know in the end it didn't really play out the way how initially we were saying, but I mean that's all we got time for now. But look, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out for us.
No, thank you. This has been incredible.
I always knew, by the way, that we would probably run out of time. Man, this was a. I always say this, to be fair. Every guest is that this absolute pleasure is going to go through and review the work that you've done and everything and that. But with you, it was much easier. Just to cut through the way you think about things. You can also see evolution in the way you challenge yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if I look at some of the stuff I posted 6 months ago, it's like, who was that guy? Yeah.
Tey, appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. No, thank you for the very thoughtful questions and the fantastic discussion.